Okay, so record. So welcome everybody to the Empowered EO Structure team meeting. We're going to be talking about organizational structure. And before I start actually with the slide share, I'm going to do, or screen share rather, I'm going to do what I did when I taught this in person. And I'm going to ask, I'm going to pick a victim. Who am I going to? I'm going to pick Rose because I can see you really clearly. Now, Rose, I'm going to play a card game with you, and I'm going to play a Queen of Hearts. What are you going to play?
Ace of Spades.
Okay, that would be a wrong move. I'm sorry. So I'm going to go
I don't
to,
know how to play it.
don't feel bad. There's a point to this. Trust me. Melissa, I'm going to pick on you. So I'm going to play a Queen of Spades. What are you going to play?
An ace of spades.
And what are you going to say?
Euchre.
No, you're wrong on both counts. Neither of those things are correct. Anik, I'm going to play a Two of Hearts. What are you going to play?
Ace.
An ace of what?
Hearts.
An ace of hearts. Oh, you're right. Good for you, Anik. You're the only one that knows how to play this game. The whole point of that, Rose is throwing up her hands like, what? I don't even know what game we're playing. And that's precisely the point, is that it's really hard to know what move to make when you don't even know the rules of the game. And when I did this at the workshop or the event that I was teaching, is that I was actually playing a game called Mao, but nobody knew it. And even if they did know it, it wouldn't help them because they'd never heard of Mao, and they didn't know the rules for Mao. And so if you don't know the rules of the game, it's really hard to know what to do as your next move, right? So when we're talking about organizational structure, I'm going to share my screen now, and you're going to find that my first point has to do with what we just talked about, was you have to know the rules of the game if you want to understand how to organize, how to structure your organization. So you really need to study the compensation plan. This is something that I did not do at the beginning because I thought, okay, well, I'll worry about it when I get there. Right now, I'm just going to worry about building my business. Can I say that that's a bad move? Really, really bad move. Even if you can't understand all the complexities of the compensation plan, you need to get your mentor, your upline, to at least go through the basics with you so you have a firm foundation to build onto. I'm not going to go through a detailed description about our compensation plan now. That's kind of beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about today. There are lots of resources online that you can use to learn the compensation plan, as well as talking to your mentor. But I do want to start by just saying you need to master the compensation plan. So I'm going to give you some simple things as an overview. Now, are the slides interrupted if I have this here? I think you guys can see that too. Is that better, Rose? Can you see this screen?
Yes, I can.
So compensation plan overview. The first thing you need to know about is that we have a fast start. And as you know, the fast start is paid for the first 60 days when you enroll somebody. You're going to get 20% if you're the enroller. The person who enrolled you is going to get 10%, and then the person who enrolled them is 5%. So there's 3 levels paid on a fast start bonus. And that's on enrollment, and then for the first 60 days who is enrolled. I'm just going to go ahead and just make sure that if you're just joining us, that you just put yourself on mute so that there's no background noise. So that's the first part of the compensation plan, is the fast start, okay? Fast start requires no understanding of structure. So it really doesn't matter where you put these people, you're still going to get fast start bonus if you have an enrollment. And it really doesn't matter where you put them in your organization, doesn't matter how you structure, you're always going to get fast start, and you never have to worry about structure, okay? The next part of our compensation plan is the power of 3. And if you remember, basically power of 3 is that you have to have 3 people on your front line who are ordering 100 PV per month. You need to order 100 PV per month yourself. And in total, you and everybody on your front line, not just those 3 people, but everybody on your front line plus you, has to have a total volume of at least 600 PV. If you have that situation, then you are getting $50 per month as a Power of 3 bonus. And then what you do is you teach those 3 people that you have on your front line to do the same thing. And once they do the same thing and they're getting $50 for each of them, you're now getting $250. And if they turn around and teach their 3 people, and they end up getting $250 themselves, and you have 3 people on your front line who are getting the 250 Power of 3 bonus, then you're getting 1,500. Okay, so that's how the Power of 3 works, is a very brief and basic overview. But Power of 3, as you can tell, does require structure. If you're just going to stick a bunch of people in random places, you're never going to get full benefit of your Power of 3, not unless the people that you enroll happen to be really good at structure in and of themselves without your oversight. So Daphne is a great example. When she enrolled, when she started her business, she got like 18 enrollments in 1 month, and she was able to structure those enrollments so that within the first few months, she was already getting her $250 Power of 3 bonus because she structured them properly. Okay, so remember, for Power of 3, you can be the enroller of everybody, which was in her case primarily true, and for many people is true at the beginning, that they actually have enrollment, but they've structured it in such a way so that they're getting their Power of 3 bonus. Okay, so the next part of our compensation plan is what we call the unilevel, or the bonus pool. And this not only requires structure, this requires structure mastery. You cannot really take full advantage of the unilevel and the bonuses available to you unless you fully understand structure or take advantage of structure and use it well to your in your organization. Okay, so unilevel, as you might know, you get paid 7 levels down on your organization, and the amount that you get paid actually increases the further you go down. It's the exact reverse of almost every other compensation program, which gives you a big percentage of people on your front line, but gives you very little percentage on people on your lower levels. doTERRA does the exact reverse. They reward and honor long-term commitment, and this makes our compensation program far, far more generous and lucrative over a long term than almost every other compensation plan available. So stick with doTERRA. It does pay off. Those 40-cent checks soon turn into, $4,000 checks in no time. Okay, so unilevel is paid 7 levels, and then as you start to reach certain ranks, beginning at the rank of silver, you start participating in the bonus structure available to you through the doTERRA compensation plan. And so those bonuses start from about $150 all the way up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's really probably not hundreds of thousands for the bonus. It would be hundreds of thousands for bonus and unilevel combined. So there's really no upper limit to what you can get from this particular element of our compensation plan. But as I said, it does require structure mastery. So for a second, let's just stop and talk about what is the difference between a sponsor and an enroller. Here is a very simple organizational structure. You are at the top, and you have 3 people on your organization, person A, person B, and person C. You are the enroller of all 3, person A, B, and C. But in this case, you are not the sponsor of all 3. You are the sponsor of A and B, but A is the sponsor of C. Okay, so you're not the sponsor of everybody. You're just the sponsor of the 2 people who are directly underneath you, even though you're the enroller of all of them. That comes into play when we're talking about the various components of our compensation plan. So for Fast Start, who gets it? It's our enroller. So if you're the enroller of someone, no matter where they're placed on your organization, whether they're on your front line or whether you put them on your 15th line, if you are the enroller of that person, you get the Fast Start. And then the person who enrolled you gets 2nd level Fast Start, and the person who enrolled them gets 3rd level Fast Start. So Fast Start is paid based on who is the enroller. For Power of Three, that's paid based on who is the sponsor. So as I mentioned, you could have a number of enrollments and you can actually place them in the right place within your organization to create Power of Three bonus for yourself. So you can create the entire $250 Power of Three bonus simply by placing people in the right spot. And this is where my heart breaks for some people who have tons and tons of enrollments and who are like enrollment dynamite people, but really don't pay any attention to structure. And so they are missing out on huge amounts of bonus that could otherwise be coming to them. They could be getting a $250 Power of Three, some of them, but because they're not organizing they're structuring their organization properly, they're not getting that. For Unilevel, it is the sponsor who gets paid Unilevel, but you do have to be careful about who is the enroller when it comes time to rank. So we'll come back to that in a second. But when I say that you're paid 7 levels down, that's 7 levels from a sponsorship perspective. So you could have people that you're getting paid Unilevel on that you didn't even put on your organization. It could have been placed there by your upline leader or their upline leader, and you're still getting paid Unilevel or Power of Three. But do be careful about looking for enrollments when you're trying to rank advance, okay? So we're going to come back to that in a little bit. Actually, we're coming back to it right now. So why do enrollments matter for rank? Okay, so here's an example where you are at the top and you have overall volume of 5,000 PV, and you're trying to rank advance to Premier. If you had this structure, would you be a Premier? Let's see if someone can answer that question. Who wants to answer?
But you can, if because you have 2 legs, but you still need, because EX, I mean, that means like executive, right?
Executive, exactly.
So executive is 2,000, so you have 2 legs of 2,000. So yes, you can.
Okay, but what's required in order to be sure? Because what if, is it possible that you could have this structure and not be Premier?
Oh yeah, if you're not the, you need to be the enroller of both of them, and you need an overall of 5,000 PV as well.
Exactly. Okay, so there's 2 conditions to be a Premier. You have to have overall volume of 5,000 PV, and you have to have 2 legs that are executive. So in other words, 2 legs that are 2,000 PV each. But the reason why when we look at this structure, like Anik was saying, how we can't automatically assume that we're going to be Premier is we have to look at who is the enroller of each of those executives. If you were the enroller of the executive on the right, but not the one on the left, then you can't rank advance because you actually have to be the enroller of the executive in order to use that leg to rank advance. So that's why I'm saying the enroller does matter when it comes time to looking at what your rank is going to be. And your rank will determine your bonus pools and how many levels you're paid on Unilevel and so on. Okay, but if you look at this structure, and let's just say that that person on the left-hand side was not your enrollment, the person on the right-hand side was. But then you look 1 level down, and there's actually somebody else sitting there who's also an executive. If that person down there is your enrollment, would you qualify then as a Premier? Anik, you're nodding your head yes. Why?
Because it's your enrollment. So if it's your enrollment, even if she's at the 2nd level, she qualifies you.
Exactly. So it doesn't matter where the person is placed on your organization. If it's your enrollment, you can qualify with that person. Having said that, if that executive on the left-hand side had 2 people underneath them that were both executive and they were both your enrollment, only one of them would qualify you. You can only ever qualify with one person on any leg of your organization. So yes, you would be premier if that person 2 levels down was your enrollment. But if somebody else on that leg was also going to be an executive and the person on the right-hand side lost their executive status, you would not be premier because you do not have 2 separate legs that are executive. You would only have 1 leg that is executive. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Enrollment does matter when it comes time to rank advance. So when we're starting off with our business, if you're on my team, you probably hear me say, I want you to focus on finding 3 leaders from the very beginning of your business. Really, everybody should have 3 personally enrolled leaders on their front line. And the question could be, why? Why is that important? Well, if you look at what it requires to be a silver, you will notice that you need 3 elites on your front line and then your silver. Remember, silver is the first rank where you actually start earning shares in the profits of the company. So it's a profit earning share. So at silver, you have 3 elites on your front line. But then look at gold. Gold is 3 premiers. So you just put some time and invest in those elites and they become premiers, and then now you're gold. So you have 3 premiers on your front line, you are gold. What is it to hit the next level of platinum? Well, it's still those same 3 leaders, but now you're investing in them and you're getting them to silver. So you have 3 silvers on your front line and then you're platinum. Okay, and then from then, it's just a quick jump to diamond. You just have to add 1 more silver. So obviously at some point before you're planning to hit diamond, it's good to start building a 4th leg. But you can see why starting with those 3 legs right from the beginning is crucially important. You might not need it for premier, but you always want to think about 3 legs because it's the necessary building blocks for all the substantial rank advancements between premier and diamond. Okay, so that's why we want to find 3 leaders. Here's another reason why we want to find 3 leaders, because when we're talking about the power of 3 bonus, go back to what we said before. If you have overall volume between you and everybody on your front line of at least 600 PV, and you are placing at least 100 PV order in the month, and each of your 3 people is placing 100 PV order in the month, well, now you're getting your $50 power of 3 bonus. Okay, so this is another reason why right from the beginning, you want to be starting to get 3 leaders on your front line, because you know that those 3 leaders are going to be committed to 100 PV order every month, and that's going to secure your power of 3 bonus. If you look at this structure, though, you'll see why there's wisdom in requiring anybody who is saying that they want to be a frontline builder with you, requiring them to have 150 PV order every month. Because if you take that 600 and then you divide by 4, it's 150 PV each. And even though it's possible that you would have other people on your front line, I can't tell you how many times on my team, on my leaders' teams, we've been short like 40 PV or 60 PV, or even if it's 110 PV. And then we're missing out sometimes on a 1,500 power of 3 bonus unless we get that PV up to 600 PV. So if everybody who's a builder with doTERRA will just place 150 PV order as a minimum every month, it just simplifies the whole power of 3 structure for everybody and nobody loses out. And I just want to pause here and just say, if you are a frontline leader for one of your builders, and I think everybody who's on this call is, can I please encourage you to really get your 150 PV order in and to get it in early. I mean, think about the 5th of the month is kind of like the last day you want to get that order in. And that's out of consideration for your upline leader. It's out of consideration even for yourself. You want to be strategically placed in in a business right from the beginning of the month. You don't want your leader to be kind of hesitating, thinking, are they going to place that order? Are they not going to place that order? And then them wondering if they're going to get their bonus, if they're not going to get it. It just makes it so much more considerate for everybody if you get your 150 PV order in really early on in the month. And actually, if you get it in by the 5th of the month, you're automatically entered into a draw by our upline leaders, and you could win up to 100 PV. There's 3 prizes. And up to 100 PV you could win every month. So just a side note about that. So that's another reason why you want to find 3 leaders. And then power of 3, we know it just replicates like we talked about before. So now we have you at the top there, and you've taught each of your 3 leaders to teach each of their 3 leaders to do the same thing. And now, as we see, you've got your 250 power of 3 bonus. So you've taught your 3 leaders to find 3 leaders. And then we do it one more time. Well, I actually don't have it here, but if we did do it one more time, we would then get our 250 power of 3 bonus, or sorry, 1500 power of 3 bonus. So if you replace that you with one of your frontline builders, and you have 3 frontline builders getting this 250 power of 3 bonus, you're now getting $1,500 a month. And that's pretty awesome. That's more than paying for your oils at that point. It's probably paying for a good hunk of your mortgage. So really important to find 3 leaders. So when we're talking about placing people on our organization, it's important to understand when we're allowed to move people, okay? So normally when we enroll somebody, we have 14 days to move that person. You really need to keep this date in mind. In fact, I would recommend that you put it in your calendar and you say, you know, big bold letters, move so-and-so by this date. Because hands up if you've got people stuck on your front line because you forgot to move them. My hand would go up right then. So this is not cool to have people stuck on your front line. So we want to be able to move somebody within 14 days of when they have enrolled. And that's just done easily through your back office. But the other time that you can move someone is if they hit Premier in 90 days. And so this is a great option for those of you who are silver and gold leaders and you are looking to find somebody else to put on your front line. This is a great option for you. In fact, it's one of the few times I would actually allow somebody to come on my front line at this stage of my business is if they hit Premier in 90 days, because having a frontline position of a silver, gold, platinum, or diamond leader, that's $1 million territory, right? $1 million real estate. And we don't give up those spots easily to just anybody. So if someone is really going to work hard and they're willing to try to hit Premier in 90 days, then they have kind of earned themselves a position on a front line. And so that's another time that you can move somebody after the 14 days is if they hit Premier in 90 days. And you don't have to move them to your front line. You can actually move them anywhere you want on your organization, but you do have that option. And that's a really great option because imagine that you enroll somebody and they say, I'm not interested in building. And then about, 30 days in, after they start using their oils and getting all excited, they start sharing like crazy, and they say, well, maybe I really want to build, and you put them on your 15th line in your organization or something, you put them way down there. So this way you could move them and you can put them in a more strategic location because they're building. If someone has been inactive for 6 months, in other words, they have not ordered for 6 months, that's the other time that you can move them. And actually, in that case, you wouldn't move them. What would happen in that case is they would send an email to placements@doterra.com, and they would say, I've been inactive for 6 months. Here's where I'm placed right now, and here's where I want to move to. And this becomes a really great option for you for filling in your power of 3. So you've been building your organization for a while, and you're really close to getting your 1,500 power of 3 bonus, but you might have some holes. So maybe on some lines, I think actually I might talk about this later, but I'll just say it now. But you might have some places where instead of having 3 people there to place $100 order in a month, maybe you only have 2. on that one leg. So you're not going to qualify for your Power 3 bonus because you don't have 3 people ordering 100 PV that month. What you could do is incentivize one of these people who have been inactive for 6 months and say, listen, you place a 100 PV order and I'm going to give you 50 PV for free. Would it make sense to do that? Well, for sure it would if you're going to get a $250 bonus from doing it or a $1,500 bonus from doing it. And then before they place that order, you just instruct them to send this email to move themselves to a different place on your organization. The place that you move them to is where they will be most effective for your Power 3 bonus, and then they can place their 100 PV order then. So that's another time that somebody can move. And the last time when someone can move is if they fill out an exception request. Now, for those of us who have done this, we know that it's not an easy process. It's a form that we have to fill out, and then it has to be signed by 3 levels up for enroller and 7 levels up for placement. So there's actually quite an involved process there. And I'm going to have to cough. Hang on. Where are those breathe drops when you need them? Got to go get one. Anyway, so it's quite an involved process. Not something I would recommend. And definitely not something to replace what you would otherwise have to put into in terms of thought for moving somebody within their first 14 days. So don't just say, oh, well, it doesn't really matter where I move them because I can always fill out an exception report later. Well, that exception report's really hard to get done, first of all, and then it's not guaranteed that it's even going to be approved. So then it has to be submitted to a committee. They have to review the application, and they have a bunch of things that they look for. So that possibility does exist, but it's not something I would rely on for sure. Okay, giving up enrollment. You may not even know that you can do this, but you can. You can actually give up enrollment. And who can you give enrollment to? That's the first thing we need to answer the question, because it would be really nice sometimes if we could, give up enrollment of somebody that's on one leg to somebody that's on another leg because you want to move them to that place. But you actually can't do that. The only time that you can give enrollment is if you're giving it up. In other words, it has to be given to someone who's directly above the person who we're trying to change the enroller for. So let me see if I have, go back to here. So if you can imagine, you have you at the top, and you probably can you see my cursor? You can see it? Okay. So you have you at the top, and you have this guy way over here, and you want to give enrollment of this guy to this leg over here. You can't do that because it's not the same leg, okay? So you can't give somebody from here over to here. The only time you can give enrollment is up. And so if this was my enrollment, I could give this enrollment to my person here, or if this was their enrollment, they could give that enrollment to me. So you have to give enrollment up, okay? You can't give it sideways. Does that make sense? So that's who you can give it to. But why? Why would you give up enrollment? And when would you do that? Well, first of all, you have to understand what you're giving up. When you give up enrollment, you are giving up your fast start. Because if you don't have enrollment, you don't have fast start. So if you have one leg that has been given to you by your upline, just know that all that fast start is now going to you instead of going to your upline. And so that's why giving up enrollment is a big deal, okay? Because it's literally giving up income. So remember that when you're giving up enrollment, you're giving up the fast start. The second thing you need to know is that that person that you're giving up enrollment for will no longer qualify you. So let's scroll up again. Remember I had this, I think it's actually just down below. Here it is, yeah. So here's you at the top. And you have an executive on your front, sorry, an elite on your front line, and then another premier, and another premier, and you're trying to hit gold. Okay? Remember I said before, it won't matter to you if the elite on your front line doesn't qualify, as long as the person underneath them, that premier down there, is your enrollment, you're still going to be gold because you still have 3 premiers. You have Premier 1, Premier 2, and Premier 3. And so because you have these 3 premiers, you are gold, and it doesn't matter that the person above them is not a premier. Okay, you're still gold. But what if I had given enrollment of this person, this premier, up to this elite? If I have done that, then this person cannot qualify me for gold. Now I'm dependent upon that elite to hit premier in order for me to hit gold. And so you really need to have a clear understanding of the person that you're giving the enrollment up to. And if you ever hear me counsel my builders, my counsel is always that if you give up enrollment to somebody, have an agreement with that person that if they do not get their own leaders and if they do not maintain rank, they will give that enrollment back to you, because you can do that. You can give enrollment back to the person that gave it to you, but you can't change again after that. So you can give enrollment up and it can go back to where it originally came from, and after that it can never change ever again. So I always say have an agreement in place with that person on the front line that you've given enrollment up to, that if they stop hitting rank, if they stop doing something, they will give you enrollment back. Okay, because enrollment matters. Does that make sense? Okay, so why would you give up enrollment? Well, obviously to help somebody rank advance. So going back up here, if this elite could be a premier by having enrollment of this person, and I really wanted to help them rank advance, then I would want to give enrollment up to them. Or perhaps in this case, I wouldn't need to give up enrollment for qualifying, but maybe this person who's a premier down below is actually not a premier, maybe they're an executive. In that case, I could give the enrollment of that executive up to the elite because they already have another leg, for example, and then they would be premier. And if they're premier, then I'm gold. So we give enrollment up to help our frontline or other leaders rank advance, okay? How do you give it up? Well, it's a simple email. You just send an email to placements@doterra.com, and there's actually kind of a little bit of a form. It's not really a form that you fill out, but there's a form that, in other words, a structure that has to be to your email. You would say who the current wellness advocate is, and you know who the proposed wellness advocate is, and so on. So there's actually kind of a structure that you follow, and I have that if you need that. Or if you're a silver or gold leader, then you can ask your account manager. But it's a simple process to give up enrollment. And if you have an account manager, it can happen on the same day. If you don't have an account manager, then it will take a little bit more time. When you give up enrollment, well, that's completely up to you. You can choose to give it or not give it, and you can give it whenever you want. So you could have an agreement potentially with your frontline leader that if they hit premier on their own, then you will give up enrollment of that third leg that's your enrollment. You'll give that to them so that they could hit silver, for example. So you can decide when you want to give enrollment up. The one thing we need to always remember is that we can't demand that our upline give us enrollment of anybody. If they've put somebody on our front line, we can be thankful to them. That helps us to get our power of 3. We're getting unilevel. We're getting all of those things, but we can never demand that enrollment be given to us, because enrollments are enrollments. I mean, the person who has the enrollment has them for good reason. Okay, so when you give it up is really up to you. Okay, so I just want to talk very briefly about something called an insurance leg. What is an insurance leg? Well, some people, if we go back to this example, imagine that these 3 people on my front line actually all were gold, or premiers rather. So I actually had 3 premiers. And imagine that that first premier there that's now showing as an elite, she had her own 2 people that were qualifying her as a premier. But I had my own 3rd person on her front line. And that third person was a builder, and they were building quite regularly. And I kept enrollment of that person. And I would do that. I would keep enrollment because now, even if this top person doesn't qualify me for gold, this person down here can qualify me for gold. So either way, I'm covered. So that's one way you can have an insurance leg. The other way you can have an insurance leg is you could build a whole fourth leg. And that fourth leg you could build up to premier, so that if one of your other legs does not hit rank, then you have your fourth leg to hit for you. Now that's wonderful. It's not easy, and I think if it were easy, we'd all have insurance legs. But most of us are trying to just qualify with the legs we have. Never mind try to build another one. But the easier way to do it is this way, like I just showed you, is to build an insurance leg actually underneath the leg that you're qualifying for. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why you would have an insurance leg. So that's all I wanted to cover from a teaching perspective. But now what I'm going to do is open it up to questions. I'm going to stop my share, and then I know that for some of you that was super basic, and for others of you that was like, that's okay. All responses are right, but you might have questions based on where you are. Oh, I think there's some. So a question from Melissa. How quickly does the move happen? To move an inactive person to somewhere else in your organization, how long does it take? If you have an account manager working with you, for example, Melissa, if you got Veronique involved and she had her account manager involved, then it can happen the same day. Otherwise, we have to wait. And we can't always involve the account managers. The account managers are meant to serve their people, so they're meant to serve the silvers and golds and diamonds, whatever that they're assigned to. But if it had to happen for Anique's sake as well as your sake, then she can involve her account manager. Sylvie asked the question, don't do it on the last day of the month. It does take time. Yes, that's a good point. You can do it on the last day of the month if you have an account manager that you know is at your beck and call at that last day, which we're very thankful for. But otherwise, yeah, don't wait. Anita asked the question, how far away would you place people from you? That really depends, because if you know that they're just going to be customers, then really you want to push them down as far as possible, because they're not builders, they're not sharing, no need to really keep them close to you. And of course, your unilevel is greater on people who are farther down, right? You get 7% on people on your 7th line and only 2% on people on your top line. So you kind of want to push those people down. But the bad side of that is that what if they decide to build in the future? Then you got someone on your 7th line that's building. Well, that's not very convenient. So you really need to have a really clear discussion with somebody. And if you have not listened to the 3 Pathways by Teresa Harding, I recommend that right after this, you go and you listen to it, or make time to listen to it. It's probably the most brilliant and concise method of having people decide where they see themselves fitting within doTERRA. I mean, when I first started, it was all like, I never wanted to ask the hard questions, right? You know, hey, do you want to earn money with doTERRA? You know, yeah, you do. Okay, I'm going to put you on my front line. You know, you're almost like fishing them in. That serves nobody at all, because we don't want to assume where people are going to be. We want to make sure that they're deciding where they want to be. But on the other hand, we do want to give them the options, right? If they never know, how are they going to decide? So watch that Teresa Harding video, have a discussion with them within the first 14 days, and make the best guess you can. Builders on your front line, sharers on your 2nd or 3rd line, and then users as far down as possible. Next question is people who are against multi-level marketing, maybe who've been hurt by it, but have a huge potential, and you believe that it would be so great and that they would love it. There's not a question there, Anita. You can unmute yourself. What question are you asking?
Sorry, okay, there is more and more people that are interested in oils, and they're totally excited. The people that I can sample in Slovakia, for example, and I know they will love it, and they may even build it, because that's what they have done. They have taught about raw food right away when they got introduced to it, and but they are very much against MLM. So You know what I mean now?
Are you asking, but what's,
Where are you going to place them? You totally believe they're going to be builder, but you know they're not going to give you an answer for first 2 months at least.
yeah, I mean, so here's what I'd say to that. First of all, I say that when people have that response to direct selling or multi-level marketing, I would approach it the same way I would approach somebody who was totally against, using oils because they read on the internet that, when you take oils internally, you can get kidney failure. So I would approach it the same way. Both of them, it's lack of education. It's somebody basing a decision on something that they've heard or something that they even have experienced, but it's not really understanding the doTERRA opportunity. And so I would do whatever I can to educate that person to make sure that they actually understood what the doTERRA opportunity was about. So sending them that video by Seth Risenmay about, building a pipeline and why doTERRA is such a great opportunity. Sending them to Kyle's workshop to meet doTERRA from a skeptical man's point of view. Somebody's just making noise. I'm just going to see. Going to just mute a couple of people. So all of those are reasons, are resources rather to send to those people, but really just educating them about the difference between an Amway situation where there is somebody who has seen the power of the direct selling opportunity and stuck a product in there to make it legal, but really what they're selling is a business opportunity, versus doTERRA, which has this phenomenal product that's changing people's lives and literally revolutionizing the natural healthcare industry by the quality of oils that they offer. And they have to find what is the most effective way to distribute this product. And because of the beauty and the relationship available in direct selling model, they chose that model. So to simply throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, well, they're all Amway-like people, that's not the conclusion. That's a wise one. So I think education would be my first line of attack, so to speak. My second response to that would be, if you presented that information to them and they're still dead set against it, well, we can't make their decision for them. And I know that we've all made mistakes, hands up if you've made this mistake of assuming on behalf of someone else where they would be a good fit. Now, there are exceptions, like my beautiful Anique, who when I was starting out, it was like, okay, yeah, I know you just want to be a sharer. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, she's the awesomest builder ever. And I know she's going to do it. And she enrolled 40 people in her first couple of months. And so I kept her on my front line because I love her and I know her really well. But with the exception of people like that, I would say, just place them based on where they have specifically stated they want to be. And of course, if you don't have a huge organization, then you have the freedom to keep them a little closer to your front line, right? Like you don't have to place them right at the bottom of your front line. You're still not doing yourself any harm, especially if they're regular purchasers, to put them closer up to help you with Power of 3 even. So, but remember, even if you've got someone on your third or fourth line that decides in the future to be a builder, you still can build with that person. And if the person that they're underneath is building, well, give up enrollment and allow that person to run with them. But you never lose by somebody deciding to build in the future, although sometimes we think, kind of wish I had them on my front line. We still don't lose. Any other question? Clear as mud? Dawn, you look so thrilled.
That's because I'm so lost.
Well,
this is right now way above me. I'm still struggling with understanding everything about the oils and everything else that I didn't really pick up on any of this yet. So I'm going to be hitting Jody quite hard probably as I move along and say, Jody, what do I do here? Help me. Until I get a good grip on it.
And you can watch this recording because she recorded it.
It's recorded.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
Okay.
If you can walk away with something from this, I want you to understand this, that if you don't pay attention to placements, The highest rank you will ever hit with doTERRA is what? Who
The
knows?
bar.
Yeah, what's the highest rank that you can hit with doTERRA if you don't pay attention to placements? Jacqueline says elite. Exactly. The highest rank you can ever hit with doTERRA, if you're not going to pay attention to placements, is elite. Even if you have 5,000 people on your organization, which would be dumb to not pay attention. But even if you had 5,000 people in your organization and you're a stellar enroller and you stick them all on your front line, the highest rank you will ever achieve, even if you had $200,000 of volume every month, the highest rank is elite. You can't get past elite, which means you just missed out on 99% of what is available to you with the doTERRA plan. So it's totally not wise to not pay attention to structure. We do have to place people. We have 14 days to do it. We wish we had more time, but let's work with what we have, and let's just make the most of what we have. And at the beginning, Dawn, you don't have to understand the compensation plan. Just work really closely with your upline mentor, and the two of you together can decide where people are going to go. But you need to have those crucial conversations with the people that you're enrolling based on that Teresa Harding 3 Pathways video. If you can watch that video, make the notes on it, have the conversation, and then take your conversation to Jody and say, okay, now what do we do with this? Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
all you have to know.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple more questions. No, elite.
I have a question, Kim.
Yep.
It's regarding the inactive accounts, because I have a few of them that I have to move.
Okay.
So you mentioned that they have to send the form telling placement in doTERRA where they want to be.
Right.
Okay. So in that case,
It's not actually a form. It's just an email. It's just that placements prefers the email to look like a certain way. Like I think I always forget the order, but it's like wellness advocate requesting the move, wellness advocate to be moved, old enrolling sponsor, old placement sponsor, new enrolling. I don't know, something like that. But you'll see. I can send it to you. But it's very, very simple. No, there's no actual form. It's just an email. It's just that there's a structure, so to speak, of how they want the email to look, because they have to process so many emails. They're just asking you to do it in a certain way. And if anybody has that email from placements, there's like an automatic response that you get from placements that shows you what they want you to follow, then you can just post it in the comments here. But what was the rest of your question?
yeah, it's the person who is inactive
Okay.
for 6 months has to ask to be changed. This
Yes.
is what you said.
That's right.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah, they have to
I was
request.
surprised. I didn't expect that
Yeah,
person herself has to.
and it's actually a good thing. I mean, that's how I have Anita on my team, right? Like Anita was so I think she's probably one of the most patient people in the world when it comes time to things like this, because she waited for 6 months to go inactive, to not order anything from doTERRA, so that she could switch to my team. And she got full approval from her previous upline, who was a friend of hers, so it's not like I was stealing anybody. She actually just wanted to come to a team where she was going to be connected to the people and supported and so on. So she waited 6 months to transfer, and then she sent the email and she transferred over, because it's not, you can transfer to anywhere within doTERRA if you've been inactive for 6 months, not just on the same organization. But yeah, the email has to come from them. So you would just give them, what I've done for customers in the past is I've just said, can you send this email to placements@doterra.com? And they usually have no trouble doing it.
Okay, yeah, this is what I was thinking, because they don't know where to go. Right?
No, I give them all the
structure. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you give them the exact details of where they need to be, and they don't really care. As long as they understand they can still keep ordering, their account's not affected, that it's really just kind of helping you with bonuses and structure and so on, they're usually quite fine with that.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, if there's no more questions, then I'm just going to bring it to a close. But one of the things I just really encourage you to do is to do work with your upline. And if you have made a lot of errors in the past with regard to placements, don't let it trouble you. If it's possible to get the exception request done, then you can do that. But you know what? All of us have made a placement faux pas, and all of us have survived. So just move forward with a lot of connection with your upline mentor, and together you can come up with a good plan about what you're going to do going forward. There's no organization that's not recoverable. And if you have people stuck on your front line, well, turn them all into builders. That's my solution, right? Turn them all into builders, because you have 7 people on your front line. They all become, platinums. You're now presidential diamond. So, so it's not such a bad option. So if you have no more questions, then I'm just going to end the recording. And I'm going to say thank you so much for joining in. And I look forward to seeing a lot of you at convention. Woo! And for those of you who are going to be at convention, you better come next year, because we're going to have a spot for you. And if you do want to come next year, let me know, because when we're at convention, you're going to have the opportunity to buy tickets through one of their convention participants, and I'm happy to buy it on your behalf. But you can buy it at a much reduced price. So, and you're guaranteed a ticket. You don't have to stay up till 2 a.m. like poor Melissa had to do, and Anik, to get a convention ticket. It's not always the same weekend. No, it's not always the same weekend or time of year. Last year it was actually, I remember, because my daughter's birthday is September 18th, so it was that far into September. Yeah, this year it's a little earlier, which I'm grateful for other reasons, but I know first week of school is not fun. But we actually had a late first week of school this year, so I think that was kind of part of what made it a little odd. But anyway, it's going to be awesome. So look forward to seeing you at convention. And for those of you who aren't coming this year, we'll see you next year. Bless you.
Bye.
Bye.